Hello, y'all. Just welcome back. We are in the final stretch of 24 hours of of telephone coding. So we got a zip project of unknown content. We're passing it around between 10 developers. Each developer gets 24 hours. We get in there, we figure out what game engine it is, what language stuff's done in, what's even done, what game are we playing. And so I got this zip file. Turns out it's a Redot project. I've never used that. Had to download that stuff. And it's a GD script, which is a Godot script, which I've never used, but it's like Python. Of course, never used that. So again, learning syntax and everything. It's also a game based on this. It's based on this game called Lobotomy Corporation, which I've never played, didn't know anything about it. And so tough task right off the bat. So uh, luckily, I've been around the block a few times, made a few games, so started working on some subsystems and started working on just getting some like audio in there and stuff that I knew would give me a little bit of test laps at the coding pool to just get familiar with how do you use this game engine and all this stuff. And so we got some sounds in. We, I'll show you the list here. We got some music in, put a splash screen in, some kind of basics to get me warmed up. Then we took the idea of in this game there's these workers that kind of wander around and apparently they go to containment rooms to work on monsters or maybe subdue the ones that got out. Well, uh, so made those move around, idle. Then you can then we made them click the rooms clickable so that the workers would try to go to the room. The workers now can ride up these elevators, ride down the elevators, go in and out of rooms. You can click on one and give it a different room, and it leaves and goes there. Awesome. Then we got monsters going just right before I took a food break, and that we wired up to these so test button. And so that's the spawn monster thing. And we just got these stubbed out art packages for these monsters, but now the monsters will spawn into a different room, right? And keep keep filling up these rooms, and that's basically where we're at. And so I think right now what we want to do is probably scale these monsters down a little bit because they're kind of giant, and then have them idle, maybe in the rooms. I don't know if that's a thing in this game type. Again, honestly, I've never played it, and it's not something I'm familiar with at all. So I don't know if these monsters move around in the room or not, but I think it would look more interesting if they did. So we've got less than 2 hours left with this code base, and we're going to try to get as much stuff done so that when we pass it off to the next guy, he has a chance of continuing to make this game. Now I am developer number 3 out of I think 10. I'm not positive, but I think it's 10. So this is going to be happening over the next week, and we'll see what gets made out of this. So without further ado, let's get in here and see how this art that I put in there. Let us make this art like half that size. See how these are our workers, so this is some more programmer stub art. They're less than the size of a door. Well, maybe a monster should be a little bit less than the size of a door also. So let's figure that out. And again, like I've been using this editor and language and everything for less than 24 hours, so I'm not a pro. If you're in the if you're in a chat, message me if you think I'm really screwing it up. But until then, let's figure out how like should we define. So we have these files that are .tscn, and it says scenes, which really confused me coming from like I'm familiar with Unity and some other engines, Unreal, my own custom one, but it seems like everything is a scene in Godot. If that's how you say it, let me know how you say it. Um, so I don't know if we should change the sizing. See how this collision shape is 20 pixels by 20 pixels? I don't know if we should change the size in this. What I would, it's like a prefab to me in Unity, I guess is the best way to kind of relate it, even though it's a scene. It's got the little like clicky thing and everything. So, do we change it in this prefab, or should we change it in the code where we spawn it? So we have a function called spawn monster. Let's go there. And we do set up monster. So I don't know where monster type dot size. So this is an array thing. I don't know where we figure out where we should set the size. So what I've been, you know, a lot of what I've been showing off actually is effective ways of using AI. And don't let that, if you're a programmer and you don't use AI every day, you're doing it wrong. You need to get with the program. It's just like using Stack Overflow or the internet or O'Reilly books or whatever. You need to learn how to use AI because it's not you know AI is not super genius. Look, if you have to you know prove you're not a robot by finding crosswalks, there's still some hope left, at least for a few years. So AI is good at patterns, and it'll help us. Like we could just ask it. Let's say, hey, uh, change the size, or like set the size of the monsters in this function for us. And I don't know what size it should be, but let's make it like set it to. Let's look at this thing and see if we're dealing with. I think we're dealing with units in this thing in this editor, right? Like, are we dealing with? It's not pixels, I don't think. Maybe it is, but you can see we're going from almost negative 920 for this door to negative 1050. So if these are like world units, then that's like 130 world units. So maybe 100 is the right, like 100 units tall. Maybe 100 units is the right amount. We'll find out. I think it's set up monster where we can do it. Again, there's no right spot probably. Everyone's gonna have their opinion on where the right spot is, but let's figure this out. So in setup monster, so it's adding a whole bunch of stuff, making sure there's a texture, make sure there's a sprite, uh, getting the. So maybe it's in the add texture, actually, is where that should go. Add texture. So when a monster's ready function gets called, this is like this ready. Let's put this at the top. This is really kind of a main core thing. Um, we first thing we do is add the texture and we add the hitbox. So maybe let me take it back. Let's say never mind set and add texture. And so the two things happening. One is we're going to get AI is going to kind of rough in what we need to do, like which properties and fields we're dealing with, and kind of how we might set units sizing in this GD script. Um, so it kind of stubs out the concept for us, but we're also learning as we do this. If we actually compare the and read through the script that it writes, we should learn. Helps us learn the language quicker. So if there's no texture, we make a new sprite 2D, and we set the texture that's passed in, and then we add that texture as a child to this monster, and then we if that texture's not null, which it should never be null, I guess unless you pass in null here. This code doesn't actually look, I don't know if it looks right or not, but then we're getting the size off the texture. And then we're setting the scale factor to make the height 100 units. And then we're creating a new vector. So basically the way we're controlling the size is by the scale. Okay, so we're scaling this. We're not saying in absolute units, here's what it is. We're taking whatever that texture size happens to be and scaling it. So in this, the way this code works is if the artist produces big textures or small textures, it'll change the size of the monster in the game. I believe that's probably how that's going to work. So let's spawn some monsters, see if they're smaller. Okay, they're definitely smaller. You see how much smaller they are? So we probably want them bigger than that. So let's just double this. I like to, when I'm messing with sizes, like double or 10x it, like not messing around with little numbers. And then once you get the ballpark, you can go back down and you kind of hone in on your number you're looking for. Okay, so we doubled, and that's probably about right. And now the situation is the monsters are, they look like they're offset up. And so let's look at where the monsters get added, where they get added as far as position goes. So spawn monster. That must be the caller that sets the position. Okay, so spawn monster is getting called in this gameplay. So it sets the position to get monster spawn position. Alright, so get monster spawn position is finding this and getting its position. Alright, fine. So on ready, it's looking for a marker 2D called monster. Alright, well, the bummer of that is that we might have to go in and change a bunch of whatever these markers are inside of a containment room. So let's look at a containment room and see if we can figure out, like, where is this monster? Where is this set? We'll give this the code for containmentroom.gd just to see if it knows in the hierarchy where, because I don't see this on ready. So this variable is getting set after this script runs, and it looks like this syntax, I don't know exactly what that means, but it's looking for something called monster as a marker. And so now I want to see, where's that marker set maybe on these properties? Is that a thing? Because I put these properties in, the door spawn and the for the entrance and the containment door. But I don't know where that monster thing, how that works. So how monster is set assumes there is a node named monster under the containment room node. Okay, so and that containment room is the scene thing, I think. There we go, positioning area. So we have monster and a door. See this percent? That must mean that must so this must be a special thing. Marker. Yeah, marker 2D. So it's just a point in space with maybe a helper accessor syntax for this percent. So what we want to do is actually adjust all these markers down. I don't really, let's see. So let's look at our gameplay level here. And then we have the containment room. What is this? Is there a way to see where the monsters spawn? So what is this thing? So one nice thing, I don't know if this sub-resources. So in Unity, for example, this this left one, left two, this is the top floor monster room. So like this is left one, this is left two. Well, in Unity, like this thing would be a prefab, and there would be a little arrow here, and you could dig into it and see its hierarchy. In Godot, it looks like this thing up here is actually built from this scene called Containment Room. And so, okay, so that's the clicker. You don't quite see it in the same hierarchy look. So I wonder if I can just change this marker down like this, and that'll work for all of them. So it wasn't set in the outer scene, it was set in this prefab. So that would be nice. Spawn some monsters and see. Hey, look, down there, down on the floor. So that looks like the right way to do this. Alright, so we got the monsters down on the floor now. Now, let's give the monsters an idle state so that they're moving around a little bit. Make it a little more interesting visually. We've got 1 hour left, and we're going to try to get this project visually, you know, active and working so that the next guy has a chance to kind of easily add stuff. And they don't have to work on so much plumbing. We did mostly plumbing. We put in some graphics for the monsters. So let's give our monsters an idle state. Now they have this script. You get to your code by clicking this thing up top here. You look at your 2D view, your 3D view, or your code view. There's not a like a simultaneous see all those things view that I can tell. So we want to look at spawn monster again. And let's just let's just look at monster. We're in the class, so we're in monster.gd. And let's see if it has a property. So it's contained. It has a containment room reference, satisfied, rampage, and I guess let's just put it on idle. Let's just make it idle a bit. Okay, so in basically we want something to run kind of every frame-ish. So in our worker script, we have this process thing, this function here, that's kind of like our every frame. Uh, so let's kind of take that and put that in our monster. I keep doing this. I hate this tab situation up here. It's not related to the code below it. It's actually the thing on the left. So process, this is going to be called every frame, and we're going to want to pathfinding logic if there is idling. So we'll just add this variable so that it's the same sort of setup as the workers. So if they're idling, we'll take that out for now. Then movement request towards. So this is, we're going to just basically lift this out of the worker. Now this is the part where you're like, oh, we could extend a base class, like a base walker, class that has some of this stuff in there. You can, but premature optimization, because we wouldn't need, for example, moving towards a room necessarily. So you start splitting up all these properties, and then it's harder to actually just read and see what it's doing. So while conceptually you've abstracted it in a way that's technically correct, it's just actually harder for a human to read and mess with. So be careful that you don't go overboard with that. Object orient when necessary, and don't go silly. Well, if you wait until the last responsible moment to refactor, then you'll refactor better. So, movement requested. We're going to just set idling to true by default and movement requested to true by default. No, false, which is how we're going to say, hey, we want you to move in a specific location. Until then, we're just going to idle you and give you a random spot. And then later on, so what we also had in here in our worker was a little chunk of code that actually did the movement. Apply the movement, apply the gravity, and the was on floor thing. So someone else may want to like refactor this in if it just really chaps their hide. But for us, it doesn't really matter. We just want to also get this is on floor, the on landed, just so that if the monsters ever do break out in this code base, that it actually will still work. So is on floor, we need the was on floor. Where is was on floor defined? Up here by the is idling. All right. And then what else do we want to take? Was on floor, is on floor, on landed the function, and that just plays our little sound for when you hit the ground. I don't know that that's gonna matter for monsters, but you know, we'll go ahead and add it. If it has a landing sound, play landing sound. Now we're gonna have to grab that too, and then you can set the landing sound through this export variable, which means it's settable in this designer. All right, let's go, and now we can look in the but we're not going to have monsters in the designer. We're going to spawn them. So in that case, we don't really need. Anyway, this will still work, but I don't think we'll need that to be an export. Move it request toward room. Oh, so we're not in the monsters case. We don't have this room variable because the monsters aren't moving to a room. We're just moving them around. Back and forth. And then what we'll want to do is kind of limit this movement towards the inside of the room instead of just random left and right. Property swiftness. Well, I guess we'll just give that to monsters too. Let's see. I don't know what this value should be, but we'll find out. Apply gravity. It's not found in the base self. Okay, so that because monsters are what? So monsters are a character body 2D. What are our workers? Character body 2D. Okay. All right. So what does that mean? Applied gravity not found. Just move and slide found? Okay, so we spawned a monster. We don't know if we don't see them moving. We could put a breakpoint in here and see. Movement requested is not true. So that's the other thing is if is idling is true, wonder if we're not. So this means when we get close to our target, pick a different target. And then this means if we don't have a target, but we're idling, pick a different target. So I guess when do we ever set this? So movement requested. So let's just start it off with being true then. See how that works. Okay, so we have our monster there. Do they move? No. Okay, so they don't move. Well, let's check out why. Maybe they're not on the floor. Let's take that out and see. Because gravity didn't apply either. Hey, there's our monster. All right. So our monster just kind of getting real jiggy with it, going towards Z0. Okay, so go to Z0 first, and obviously we don't need that. So let's contain. Let's do this. We'll give this back to AI and say, when moving, when setting movement request towards, extract this to a pick idle destination and contain to the room background. So what we want this to happen is we basically want we want a method to be extracted here. So we'll call pick idle destination, and then inside of that we'll do this kind of a random thing, but then we'll also contain it to the room we're in. So we might just like walk back and forth in the room. So blah 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 blah. It's given us the whole file back, so we don't really care about most of that. What we actually care about is this process function. So it's saying if is idling, pick idle destination. Maybe. We don't always want to pick, we want to let it walk towards the destination. So we have to look and see how that's being implemented. Yeah, so we're not going to take this AI's recommendation kind of blindly because it's not right. But, well, tell it once it finishes writing this code out, then we'll be able to copy and paste some stuff. So we want, this is going to be pick idle destination. Basically like that. We could make that one, but it doesn't matter. And then we want this func. And so it's going to look for the background node, get the size of the texture, pick a random range within that. Okay. So let's go with that. Let's see if our monster walks back and forth, but stays in their home. Yeah. And so monsters, let's make them a little creepier and slow their jam down. I think 500 was the base. Yeah, so let's change that to like 200. And see if those monsters now are a little bit more chill. It's not like, we don't need crackhead monsters. There we go. Alright. So they're still kind of getting out of their room. They're still a little big, maybe. They're bigger than the door. They do kind of need to get out of the door. So maybe they should be a little smaller. So let's scale them down. Maybe contain them in the room better. Okay. And then spawn. We're going to want to spawn monsters on intervals, maybe. Okay. So first let's scale that monster down. We did that in what? It was, the code was something like 100 divided by. No. Scale factor was 200 divided by. Because we made it smaller. It was 100, 200. We want them to be, we say smaller again. Let's go by 250. And then let's see if that does that sizing. That made them bigger. Let's go by 150. Yeah, that made them a little smaller. So they're about the door size now. And then we probably need to move that spawn point down a little bit. Spawn point down. Where did we find that? That was in the containment room scene. Monster spawn marker. We looked at it in this view. And then we're going to move it down like that. Okay, let's see if that works. Spawn monsters. They're at the floor, moving around. A little bit better, size-wise. Okay. I think I'm gonna... It's pretty good. It's pretty good. So I think... So some of these guys are actually... They get stopped, interestingly enough. But that's not our problem for right now. We've got 45 minutes left, folks. So what we're going to do is try to spawn... Let's spawn these monsters on intervals instead of now on the button. So let's go back to our gameplay scene and our gameplay script, and then just give all this code to ChatGPT just so it has it, and say, how can we add a timer to call spawn monster on a, like, after 1 second, and then every, let's see, 1 second and then after every 20 seconds. Variable. And then we'll mess around with it. Because I don't know how to do timers in GD script. So this will help us figure that out. And we'll be calling this spawn monster function. Instead of from the button, we'll just have it kind of automatically doing it. So updated script with timer. It's going to give us the whole shebang for a copy and paste. We don't really need that. So initial spawn delay and spawn interval. Okay. Can't really copy and paste while it's emitting code. So we can start typing it here. And this is called spawn interval. We'll set it to 5 so we can in debug mode, but we'll crank it up for when we check it in, so it's a lot slower. And so the spawn monster button. So we got to create this timer. So this thing is still spitting code out. All right. So on initial spawn timer timeout. All right. And then on spawn monster randomly. Okay. So this timeout function, there we go. So we're going to create a timer. Where's the ready? So we're going to create a timer. And then this is the event that gets called, or the function that gets called when that timer elapses. And this GD script like requires tabs, so when you paste in with spaces, it hates it, and it's something I hate. I hate that about languages to do that, but using white space for meaningful information. So, but we got to deal with it. So let's see. And we told AI before when it spits out code to use tabs, but if you remember what I was saying about AI context, it's not very big. The memory that it has, conceptual memory, and so it'll start to lose the things that you've told it after over time, and you have to tell it again. So the next time we do something, we'll say, remember to indent with tabs instead of spaces. All right. So our timer is going to be created. It's going to wait the interval amount. It's not a one shot, so meaning it's going to keep going. When the timeout event is called by this timer, it's going to call spawn monster randomly. Okay. And so it calls it initially and then after. So we need this thing. Oh, bad. So this kind of sucks. I have to like redo all this white space. Yeah. If you ever make a language, please don't do that. It's not clever. It's not funny. It's not cute. It doesn't save anything. If you don't like squiggle brackets, come up with a different mechanism. You don't have to have squiggle brackets either, but making white space the thing is stupid. All right, let's see if that is enough to kick off our monsters. Monster. 5 seconds later. Monster. All right. Monster. All right. So this is kind of working. All right, good. So monsters are getting spawned in. let's um let's do a sound when a monster gets spawned in. So let's look at our licensed music here for sound effects for, I don't know, monster. Let's try to spawn.
Me and me tools are at your ready. Give me a box of nails. I can taste the
Probably
fear
not.
from
So
here.
let's do a growl. No. All right, that's not working. So what do we want to do? We don't need music, we need sounds. So we want, what kind of sounds do we want? Home office, horror sound effects? Let's make steps, voices. What is steps? I kind of feel like we need a growl or something, right? When we launch, do we have growl? Okay, no, those are lame. So it's not growl, it is horror character voices? No. Let's see what else we got in here. RPG battle? Battle themes, that's not it. We need zombie voice samples? Huh, that is an image. Okay. That's a little intense, maybe? Maybe these breath ones? Yeah, that's low. Hiss. Pretty gnarly. What did we like, the low? This one's probably low and slow enough. Let's go with that. Okay. Zombie growl low. Going into, that's the stream. Going into, where did we put it? Assets? Sounds? No. Audio. SFX. Okay, so we're going to call this monster growl. Ah, shoot. It's an MP3. So, well, I wonder if, we'll see if Godot handles MP3s. So what we want to do is, um, maybe it'll work here. Let's see. Just emit spawn monster changes for this. Play. Let's see. I think it's res colon. Yeah. So how did we find an audio clip before? Did we do it? Did we ever preload it? No. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll tell them, hey, play this sound. Play audio SFX monster growl.mp3 when monster is spawned. So this this isn't the norm. You know, like you're not normally going to hard code in paths to audio files and stuff for your game, but like I said before, I would absolutely love to do is just stub in something that works and leave it in there. And then when you start doing that over and over, at that point, when you're doing it in a bunch of spots, refactor that into some place that you know is gonna, you'll make a better choice then. Like right now, I'm not sure what the right place to refactor it into is, and this AI's having a little bit of tough time here. Let's see what's going on. Just refactor as late as possible. What's the point? Spawn monster. And so now, play the growl sound. So we're making a new audio stream player, setting the stream. We have to add the child and then play it. Okay. Let's see if this works. Let's just try it. See, right off the bat. So that worked. Wait for another one. Yeah. Okay. So we got monsters spawning with the sound. Now, let's go and update our nodes. So make workers look like a character walking. We're not going to be able to do that. So before we were thinking about perhaps animating that. So we're going to do spawn monsters and make monsters idle back and forth in the room. Play a monster spawn sound. The splash screen, let's go and change that because it does take a couple seconds. We did that on purpose. But let's make it like a little bit shorter just for grins so we don't have to watch it. I think it was splash root.gd. We'll just change this to from 2.0 to 1.0. Let's just change this. Let's see if that makes it quicker. Yeah. Okay. Now we've got monsters spawning. We've got stuff happening. Now we've got 30 minutes left, and we out of this 24 hours, which is insane, but we've we've uh, we've made it this far. We're gonna finish strong. So we've got our monsters going back and forth. We've got our our dudes can be navigated. We can tell them like, hey, you go over here. That's Kevin. And so, interestingly enough, they're like, looks like they're physics. They're hitting each other or something. So we're not gonna have time to implement the game, perhaps mechanics of what does it mean to attack and stuff. But we've enabled everybody. We've enabled the next guy to be able to, wire up that situation, that gameplay. I don't even know what that means in this game to be attacking like that. But we've got it. So the question is, what should we do? What should we do next? And we've got a few minutes left. Our final thing. Should we try to work on that multi-select bug? That's sort of irritating. I wonder if when you click, so I wonder if it's when you click this move. See, because when you click on one of these guys, you see how they just all got clicked in? And then that guy got clicked in? I don't know why that's happening, but that's irritating. See how they're like sending. It's not even really click, is it? It's when the mouse enters, when they enter the mouse. Or when they enter each other. So whatever this selection code is, it's it's checking on collision. It's not checking on clicking. Is it selection? Dot selected? What is it? Node dot selected, is that it? On selecting? Trigger whenever a selection box is detected an object. Selected list find. Selected true. If the worker's a body. So let's give this to chat GPT. Say, hey, I only want selected to be set to true on mouse click, and just see what it comes up with a delta, because it looks like this on selecting, so it's being connected to this signal called body entered, and I put this note in here. I think this causes a bug, so we're gonna have to fix this on selecting to filter down. Here we go. Let's see if that works. So what we're doing is we're checking if the mouse button's pressed. So remember before how it was selecting when I was just hovering over? Now you actually have to click it, and they're not passing off to each other. So we've just fixed that bug. So we can send these guys around. Okay. And let's see if they go into their rooms. So they went up and down the elevators. And then let's take this guy out. Say, no, no, go up here. Select, get. So he gets out, he bails. You bail. Bail. So this guy's not bailing. So there's a bug here to fix too. And we got this interesting scenario where this monster's like, yo, getting on top of this worker. So the unpleasant workplace experience. Potentially. Alright, so that guy, so he can leave. So it's a intermittent bug. So he got stuck on that door. He got stuck coming out of that door. And so, is this guy stuck in this room? No. Is this guy stuck in this room? So I wonder if the the check we're doing, like how close we are to the door. I wonder if we're just a tiny bit outside the window. So this door seems to be the problem. Do we get stuck in this room too? How about this room? See how close that door is? I'm trying to see if it's because this door is too close to the wall. If we need to make the boundary check over the door a little more generous. Yeah, so see how he's stuck? So that's the bug. We'll fix that bug. He's probably stuck in this room. Nope. So that's just enough. And this is just not enough. And this is just not enough. So we have code that's what? Over door? Over door? What's it called? Is on door? Door. Where is that? That's in our worker. Our worker class is, let's see, door. Hold on, not in the right one. Door. There we go. Is over containment door. And that's the door the containment door is the inside door. Door is the one in the room. Uh, so we're looking at if its delta x is less than 20. And so let's just make this 30 and see if that fixes our problem. Like we're just not quite able to get. Gotta remember which rooms were bugged. Okay, so now they can get out. So this is interesting here, where we're warping in and out. So this guy's not, is he not hooked up to his right room? Or is it because this door's too far off? Is it just this guy? See how he's freaking out? So he's not freaking out in this room. So only happen when he's... Okay. Okay, so we have the bug where you're warping back and forth. So, alright, what do we want to fix? Let's do, first of all, let's set this spawn timing. That's in gameplay, spawn, right, it was the interval. I'll set this to 15 seconds. How often the monsters spawn in. And we'll set that to 3 seconds in. And then that'll slow down the growling thing. And we've got to figure out this enter room situation. So we're entering the room, and then we're immediately leaving the room. So we're entering the room, and then in the next frame, we're over the containment door, but we're not in the room. Oh, maybe that's it. Maybe the code is bugged in this. Are we in this room? So let's make this. Remember I said 20 fix that? Maybe we need 30 here. Maybe our 20 unit bounce check just wasn't quite big enough. So that room was bugged, right? Let's see if this room's bugged. So can we get out? Can we get out? So this guy's bugged in there, looks like. Can he get out? He can get out, he's just stuck. Okay, Can he go to the next room? Can this guy get out? So he can get out, he just gets kind of stuck in there. No, he just doesn't wander much. So as long as he can get out, I think we're good. Alright, looks like we can get in and out of all these rooms. Just gonna double check. Last couple. Okay. And then, this is interesting. He popped out of this room and got stuck here. And so, what's happening? Alright, we're stuck on this. We're stuck on this exit door. So let's fix that. And let's make it so that, well, I think to slightly fix this problem, so we made the target room clickable, so that when you try to go there, it tries to go through the doors and stuff. We should also make it so that when you select one of these guys, that I could pick somewhere else, and it just tries to get there. And so maybe that's what we've got. A few minutes left, and we're going to try to just make it so that I can click somewhere, and that's where the monster goes. So, what's the best way to do that? We have to basically make the whole background clickable. Is that the right idea? Make the whole background clickable? Let's see. Gameplay, scene, backgrounds. Let's try it. I wonder if it's going to let you, like, will it let him walk off the edge, though? That's the part that I'm not sure about. I don't want to introduce any crazy bugs by letting you just click anywhere. You sort of need to click a room to go there. And it might be sucky if we introduce it so that you click there. If you go wherever you click and then you click out here, then we've got to do kinds of like bounce checking and all sorts of stuff. Right now the way it is you don't ever you can't ever target an invalid place. You're always targeting a room, and then the pathfinding is going to try to warp around. And so that could be the situation. All right. Let's look at our notes. We're almost out of time here. The clock is ticking. And so let's see. Fixed multi-select bug. Let's just leave some notes for the next guy here real quick. And we don't have that. The goals and project notes. It appears that everything in the Pew root folder is not used. Use as a reference for the original intent of the game. And then, yeah, so I'm getting the ping that it's time to wrap it up. So let's leave a few comments for the future programmer that gets to deal with this, and then I'll also recap. We'll run through just kind of at a high level what we did, and so we'll do that as we're leaving these notes. So the recap is we got 24 hours. We got this zip file. We didn't know anything about it. We didn't know the game type. We don't know the language. We don't know the game engine. It turns out I knew nothing about any of it. I didn't know the game engine, which is Redot, which is a fork of Godot, and I didn't know GD script, which is seemingly like a variant of Python or some flavor of Python. At least it looks like Python. I don't know Python, so that didn't help. I also the game was based off of this game called Lobotomy Corporation, and I've never played that game, and I actually don't know what kind of games these are. And so, from what I could gather, you know, and so, and also the project, nothing happened. It just was. It looked pretty much like this. Not all the doors and stuff were there, but it looked basically like this. And so I didn't even know like what we're doing with. And to top all that off, what we found out was that the first programmer had done a bunch of work. The second programmer, went on to work with like gameplay kind of ideas and damage types and things like that. But the second programmer was not happy, perhaps with the layout, or it didn't work. I'm not sure. I can't tell. And so he sort of refactored it into another folder. And so the first programmer put all of his stuff in this Pew folder. The second programmer came by and refactored a bunch of stuff into this Celigen folder, which is this scene that we're working out of here. Um, and that's the first scene that I could get working was this gameplay folder, because when the whole project, it looks like the whole project was just scooped up and put into this folder here. All the paths got messed up, so nothing worked. So I couldn't run anything. I could just look at this screen. And so from there, we basically had to figure out that okay, the new project is effectively in this Celigen subfolder. This Pew project, don't get confused by all the code that's in there, but look at it perhaps for ideas of what this game's about, because there's stuff in there for talking about damage types and whatever. From there, we could load this scene up, and I did never use this editor, never used the code, the language, or anything. So I needed some easy tasks. The first thing we did was to get used to some stuff is we tackled putting in a sound effect. I made a button. So that was my first thing. It was like, how do I make a button in the UI that could trigger a sound effect? Which, speaking of which, I should probably kill that thing. Um, and then we had this SFX test. I guess we could leave it in there. So that was the sound effect tester. Got me a little bit of uh, experience playing with the editor. Got me a little bit of code experience. Then we hooked up a piece of music, set it on autoplay, and then to try to deal with scene management, we hooked up a splash screen that auto loads into the gameplay scene. And then after that, I'd done a few things with the code, so I was a little more comfortable. We went and kind of deep dived into what's going on, and we figured out that these things, these red helmet deals, are basically the workers in the game. And so workers become the they're like your troops, and they didn't move, so we got them idling, which is kind of step one. We got them idling, and then after that, we made the containment rooms uh, clickable. so that you could then take the guy and make him go there. Well, you don't actually like send him to that room. We had to send him to the doors. So we had to wire up the doors and map them to the rooms. So this entrance door goes to this containment door, and then we did all the pathfinding to navigate our guy over to that door, warp into this door, and then we had to figure out how to get him back out of this room if you changed your room target. All that pathfinding stuff, which kind of led us into this morning when we were started that, leaving the rooms. Then we put in the monster spawning and monster idling kind of back and forth, and finally monster sounds, and fixed all the bugs we could. And that's kind of where we're at, you know. In 24 hours, uh, you know, using AI as a helper, pretend AI is a buddy that's sitting next to you, and just ask it questions. And it's definitely not perfect or right all the time, so you still have to think. But it helps some of the, like how much time I didn't spend looking up the syntax of declaring a variable or whatever, when instead I could read that code and just learn it and see it, you know, uh, map it to another language in my brain. And we started from being completely like zero information to now we've got some tunes playing, we've got some sound effects, we've got monsters spawning on a timer, we've got our guys idling, they're clickable. You can send them to a room, and you can take them out of a room. They're taking, elevator rides and stuff. If we do this, you'll see this guy warp down, you know, and then warping up through doors. So, really pretty, I think pretty productive. Not a lot of maybe fun stuff aside from the graphics and the sounds, but hopefully it's enough so that the next guys that get this can start with making gameplay fun. The temptation that we'll see if those guys can resist that is to refactor everything, right? And really this is the trap that almost all programmers fall into, especially an indie project when you're the only person on it. You'll you'll never like the code you wrote 6 months ago. You'll always hate it. It's always worse, right? You've always got better ideas. And so if you just continually refactor old code, you never add new stuff. And then your project's never finished. So hopefully, since we've only got 24 hours each, the guys don't spend too much time refactoring, and instead they just try to get some stuff done because we're getting closer to a game, right? We need to have these monsters need to be either attack or get attacked by our workers. There, I think, is some concept of these monsters maybe breaking out of the rooms, or some event happening where our workers are getting killed or attacked. Apparently, the amount of time a worker spends in a room might make the quota go up. I didn't want to wire that kind of stuff up because I'm not familiar with the gameplay, so I don't want to mess that up. There's the chances of, you know, one or two other guys knowing about the gameplay, they're going to do just fine with hooking up like damage points and stuff. So, we went after things that I knew. I didn't tackle the things I didn't know. I went for, bang for the buck in terms of like what could we do in the time that we had to get the next guys in a good spot. So that is it. Hope you enjoyed the stream. Those of you that suffered through almost 24 hours of watching somebody struggle, and I know I am ready to take a little break from this tiny little struggle bus that I've been on, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what the next guys do with this project. So stay tuned. I'll post links to the project updates so that y'all can follow it, and take care. See y'all later.